This show is presented by the 323 Network. You can watch all your favorite 323 friends and shows on the 323 Network YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms at 323read, and support us as we continue to grow at patreon.com/323read. That's 323REID. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 323. I am your host, Reed Murphy. Thank you all for joining us, however it is that you view this show, whether it's on YouTube and listening to the podcast on YouTube, because now you can get the podcast there. So it's very easy to just throw out when I say the 323 Network on YouTube, go subscribe, because you not only get our beautiful faces, but you can just get our beautiful voices if the face is just too much for for you to handle in all your senses. But if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever it is, thank you for always being with us. Subscribe, like, rate, do the whole deal that all the youth are always throwing out there. Joining today on this show, this especially here with the audio medium, it is a big political one. I know. We go to this goofy, zany show for sports and distraction from all the world and its problems. And folks, don't worry, because joining me today is our 323 movie expert, Travis Byram. The kids are always cheering for him. And Travis, I don't think the audience really has to worry too much about getting like incredibly depressed or bogged down by serious political commentary by both of us. This is more, we're going to be more the voices of the people, right?
That's right.
That's the way. If you want the serious stuff coming up soon, good friend of the show, Joshua Cole, we're expecting to have him back on, delegate from Virginia. He'll be helping break down some stuff going into this election, because Travis, this is for everything that it's worth. Like we're later in this episode, we're talking to an author, Alexandra Kitty. She's promoting her book that details on how the history of golf goes with the presidents and the White House and everything, and why they're so intertwined. And it wound up being very timely, because when we recorded that interview, it was 2 days before former President Donald Trump was, I want to say shot in the ear. We'll say shot in the ear for right now during an attempted assassination attempt. Now, apparently, even as the FBI goes through it, they're not sure if he was actually shot or if it was shrapnel from one of the bullets. So who knows which way to go on it. But there's so much happening in sports. The Olympics are happening. NFL training camps are kicking off. But as much as we want a distraction with sports and entertainment, Deadpool and Wolverine, just saw that was a good distraction for a little bit. You can't fully escape what's happening in politics, especially at this time in our country. This is an election year, and one of the most important presidential elections, I would say, of our lifetime.
Easily.
For sure. And so much has been happening, Travis, because when I originally wanted to do this concept, it was just going to be about our immediate thoughts following the attempted assassination of former President Trump, because there were a lot of feelings that could come from that. There was a lot of mixed emotion, I truly was completely taken over by anxiety and stress that night. And I'd never expect, at first I was I just saw a picture of it, and I was like, okay, he just, I heard about a shooting. Then I saw blood on his face and the fist pump and everything. And I was like, oh my God. It's this is, I don't like the man, but this is one of the most badass pictures I've ever seen. You couldn't pay for that kind of press in a photo if you're a presidential candidate, especially of that fan base. But I was also deeply in fear. I was like, we were half an inch away from a civil war. I think a legitimate civil war breaking out in this country. And so All that stress is happening. Then he goes golfing the next day like nothing happened, even though one of his supporters was killed. And what do we have after that? You and I have talked about the debate that happened between him and President Joe Biden. And for weeks from there, it's just like Republican momentum, Trump momentum, MAGA momentum. Biden is looking older and older as he's trying to like get over this. People are calling for him to resign. Nobody thinks that that can happen because it hasn't really happened. Like even FDR had polio and he was still going. It's just like something like it was just almost resigning to a fact that, you know, Biden's probably going to lose because of age. He looks old. He sounds old. He's acting old. He's just staring at the camera when they ask him a question, just like that.
That's my best Joe Biden.
Oh, and that's the other thing about all this, Travis. It's moving so fast because then Biden resigns, or not resigns, but he drops out of the election. He drops out of the election, is promoting Kamala Harris, saying that she should be the nominee. She's becoming like the presumptive nominee, got $81 million in small donor donations within the first 24 hours of the campaign. And through all of this, I just wanted to work on a Joe Biden impression for the show. That's all I wanted to do. We've done Trump on the show plenty of times. You had a great Biden when we were hanging out back on the 4th of July. It's not too hard. Everybody's trying to do it. Hey man. Hey, man.
Where's Howdy Doody? Someone give me my ice cream.
Hey man, let me tell you about Pookie. He was an old friend of mine back at the swimming hole, and they wouldn't let him in on my side. But I said you gotta let Pookie in. You don't know what he's capable of. I rubbed his hair. I knew what it was about. And now we can't do this.
I hate it.
It's over. We don't have somebody who can do Kamala on the show yet. We'll find somebody, damn it.
Yeah, man.
Going off of how the top 5 award nominees are being set, it could be a surprise Travis or Luis nominee on that one. We'll see. But through all of this that's been happening, Travis, we have 100 days, maybe a little less by the time you're listening to it, 100 days till this election, and a brand new candidate, like right in the middle of all of this. Has just all of this, how has it made you feel? Not even as like a politically minded person, but just as a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing. No one, I don't think anyone would ever call me super politically informed. Being in college during the Trump presidency, it was just like, what's that SpongeBob quote? How many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man? I just felt like I kept getting my ass kicked. It's going to be hard to describe to our children and our grandchildren how frequently Donald Trump was in the news every single day. Maybe it was a tweet. Maybe it was him posing in front of cheeseburgers. Maybe he befriended a tyrant. You just could not escape him basically from mid-2015 and on. And I don't want to say anything too crazy that would have the FBI checking out the 323. So I'm going to try to be super neutral when I say I'm surprised it has taken this long for an attempt to be had on his life, because whether you love Donald Trump or whether you hate Donald Trump, he's extremely divisive with what he says. And the fact that this is now just happening while he's 8 years or whatever into his political life, honestly, man, I'm kind of surprised.
I fully agree with you, and I say it in like not even in a way to like avoid, because obviously, yes, nothing crazy to be said on this show, but like the full range of emotions I went through that night. Right. And I think everybody was handling it differently on different media platforms. MSNBC was kind of weird about it, how they took Morning Joe off and Joe Scarborough and Mika off on Monday morning. They're usually on every weekday morning. They took them off the air for Monday because they were afraid of what they would possibly say about this, about the assassination attempt. But I think just like the process I went through in that moment, like I can't, and just for the full spectrum, like I don't necessarily consider myself like a Democrat or a I don't really like I don't like the whole party thing. I would probably mostly vote on the liberal side, or almost always. And but ultimately, like what you said, of living through the Trump presidency in 2016 to 2020 was insane. And it felt like something chaotic and disastrous every other day. Like at first it was just funny when he was running and he would say funny shit and give people wild nicknames, and then it just got real and got too real. And I was of like the firm belief, like I can't go through that again. I don't want to go through that again. I would have to seriously consider moving out of this country that I love, because I can't go through that, and I'm afraid of the things that are happening. But then the assassination attempt happens, and I'm watching it, and I'm seeing it, and I'm going through the thought process in my head, like, I don't like the man. I don't like to use the word hate very often, but I do really close to hate that guy. Like, I can't stand him, but I don't wish death upon him. I wouldn't wish an assassination upon him. I wanted him to go to jail. That's the best punishment I could see for somebody doing the things that they've done. But I can't wish death upon him. But the conflicting thought in my head would also be that I do fully see how this world would be better without him, right? Like without the threat of this guy. And so like I'm going through this in my head, and I'm just feeling like so stressed out and anxious and like conflicted about everything that happened. Like I'm so happy that bullet did not go that way, because the fan base there would be ready to just go to war and rebellion in the streets. But also, like, if it had, like, this is taking away so much fear and stress of a threat of a person, but who knows what else it would birth. So like all of that goes on just to find out it might have been shrapnel that just took a little piece of his ear, and now all of these people are wearing bandages on their ear too. And
we couldn't get them to wear a mask, Reed, but they will gladly put a bandage over their ears.
And they argued about that, saying you guys looked like idiots for wearing the masks in your cars. And granted, yeah, you didn't need to wear the mask in the car, but wear the mask everywhere else. I don't want to breathe that same air. Either way. like it's just baffling shit that happens. And now on the other side, hey man, retires. He's ready to go. He's just going to fulfill his duties for the rest of the year. He was under this understanding that there's a better shot of losing that office if he keeps running for re-election than there is if he gives it up to somebody else. And so now it looks like Kamala Harris will be the presumed candidate. That whole move by Biden, what were your thoughts regarding that?
I'll tell you the truth, man. I was actually pretty happy that he stepped down out of consideration. When we watched Night of the Living Dead, I mean the last presidential debate, it was so hard to watch, because I think all jokes aside, you weren't even really focusing on the politics of these two, right? We know where Biden stands. We know where Trump stands. That debate was so insane, because I feel like it wasn't even a debate, because the country is so divided, and I'm a mailman. I'm going to be delivering millions of political ads. And I think it's all kind of pointless because at this point, I think you know where you are. But the debate to me was, we know where our stances are. Let's see how these two go toe to toe. And it was just so embarrassing watching Papaw, watching a Papaw off, Reed, like seeing that these were the men who are vying to represent our country.
Yep.
Is depressing. And some people say that Trump won just because he was mostly coherent. Donald J. Trump was coherent. And seriously, it's come to the point now where even though Trump isn't that much younger than Joe Biden, he certainly presents like he has his shit together more. And the endless compilations you can find on TikTok alone of Biden just having that 1,000-yard stare, probably thinking about when he got his first color television. You just should realize that the man is not mentally capable. And having sympathy for Biden, I don't know how I feel about Biden, the politician, but Biden, the man, has gone through tremendous grief and sadness, the loss of his son, with the loss of his wife. And I think to not have him be embarrassed in 2026, if miraculously he would have gotten elected, which I don't think he would have gotten elected if he had gone against Trump. But if he had to step down in 26 because he had himself, a bunch of Mitch McConnell moments where he just froze and just called someone the wrong name, like he was with Vice President Donald Trump,
Yep.
I think it is much more dignified to step down now and give someone else a fighting chance against the Goliath that is Donald Trump than to kind of have to step down because you're being forced to when you kind of lose your capabilities.
Yeah, it is that whole deal, because like it really did come from that debate. I mean, the age question had already been there, but I think it had quieted down
Right.
a good amount before that debate. That debate was jarring from the very first words that Biden let out, where his voice just sounded awful. And he might have had a cold. Like, I could believe that he had a cold when they put that out there, but that still did not change everything. Like, one, it's awful decision-making by your team to put you out there, because you know that he sounded and looked like that going into the thing, but he hasn't shown any other signs post of looking much better. But it was wildly sad. As somebody, I can remember how he was back in 2008 when he was, running for VP with Barack Obama. I remember seeing Biden speak at Mary Washington, at the University of Mary Washington. Biden and Obama spoke at a rally, and Biden had so much energy, so much he was played by Jason Sudeikis on SNL because of how wild of an uncle.
That's right.
He was. He was like, and
wow.
to watch the aging of somebody, over however many years it's been since then, to watch him just age and go down like that. And it was sad. And you talked about the tremendous sadness and the grief that he's gone through, especially with losing his son, and to the point where I do fully believe he did not want to run back in 2020. He did not want to go for that.
I think that too.
Yeah, I don't think that he wanted to, but I think, and it's the appreciation that I have for him as not only as a decent man, which I do firmly believe him to be that over, everything that he's displayed in his career, 50 plus years in politics, where I do appreciate the act of stepping down and admitting that you can't do it. I think it is a noble act. I think it's hard as hell to be doing something. We see it in sports pretty often where athletes are playing long past their prime, and it's hard to say that I don't have it anymore, I can't do this, that there's somebody better for this job than me. But that is what had to happen there. He had to hand over the car keys, basically, in this situation. And it's sad, but I appreciate that. I appreciate his service to the country. I appreciate him stepping up in 2020 when it was needed, and he probably didn't want to do this, and for stepping down now when it turned out he needed to do that as well. Now, Kamala Harris is the presumed nominee for the Democratic candidacy. The convention, I think, is on the 19th. The Democratic convention will be August 19th, so they'll do official votes. Okay. And I think there's some excitement that is sparked, whether you're a Democrat or an undecided voter or just like not interested whatsoever. But then you see this happening, and she's getting like big Leslie Knope comparisons from Parks and Rec. There's people calling her the giggler because of this laugh that she has. But there's some youth and some variety with her, and there's a lot of excitement. And now we're looking at her VP, candidates who could possibly be in there. And I mean, Veep just rose to like the top of the charts on Max again with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And a lot of talk regarding that. When it comes to Kamala Harris and the VP consideration, where's your thoughts and standings there?
Well, Reed, I hope you don't mind, but I know we got a top 5 going into this. I wanted to get a kind of a pregame top 5, and
I like it.
I hope you don't mind. I'm kind of springing this on you, but I came up with, you told me about being on the pod earlier this week, and real quick, I won't take up too much time.
Well,
I've assembled my top 5 candidates that I think Vice President Kamala Harris should go with.
This is big. Let's get the imaging for that. We're just going to launch into all these top 5s. Here we go. Top 5 candidates.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the 323's Top 5.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Ah, shit. Here we go.
Here we go again.
This is big. This is big. All we can get all the political pundits and all the the media areas to really dive into this, because everybody's talking about VP candidates, and now we have a top 5 list of VP candidates for Kamala Harris.
All yes, right. Sir.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Reed, and I appreciate you giving me this little spotlight. And I don't know if Kamala is a fan of the pod. I know she's been trying to relate hardcore to TikTok and Twitter and everything, so maybe she watches this. So, Mamala, if you're listening, these suggestions are absolutely free. Okay, Mamala. First off, we have the obvious one, Reed. Number 1, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. To me, I think he's the obvious choice. He's the husband of the politician who was shot, Gabby Giffords. So, he'll come in with a strong position on gun control. From Arizona, the senator from Arizona. So he's getting a whole different part of the country than Kamala. I would not be surprised to see a Harris-Kelly ticket. I think she would be wise to go that route.
I think we've been hearing a lot about that. So because we usually go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but I think because we've heard so much on like Kelly, like that's a good way to start. Yeah, get the obvious out of the way.
Yeah, okay. He's a big number 1, I think.
I like it.
Number 2, Bernie Sanders. I personally have voted for Bernie in every single election that he was eligible. Now that Trump is the old man in the race, I think Kamala can say, fuck you, I'll go older. Bernie Sanders is almost as old as Methuselah himself.
That's true.
Has the Vermont vote, has the vote of all the Ben and Jerry's consumers, all the fish fans. Are you kidding?
Oh my God.
Like, that's an untapped market. If she wants to go the more traditional route and get an old white man, get the oldest white man that we have.
Right. As a black woman, like, she's pushing hard for the black vote and for black women to get out to vote for. Fish fans, though, that's a great consideration. I haven't thought about fish.
Yeah, definitely, my man. All right. Number 3, and I've heard this being discussed some on CNN and MSNBC, so I know I'm not the first to break this, but Elmo. Now, there is debate whether, is Joe Biden, can he handle office? And there would be debate with Elmo, can he as a non-human run for office? And I say, you need to be a resident in the United States for 35 years. We know where the fuck Elmo lives. 123 Sesame Street, baby.
That's right.
Now, I don't know if Kamala wants to double down on the black vote. We all know that Elmo is canonically black.
He is, yes.
It will get the elementary school vote. I know there's concern about, can we set an age limit? There's a minimum age for president. Can we set a maximum age for president? Think of how many elementary school voters, kids that I used to work with, kids that you take care of, they can cast a vote.
They would be out there.
They would be at the polls, yes. Bro. Their elections are already at schools.
Right.
Elmo is right there, and he will literally be Kamala's right-hand man because she will be controlling him with her right hand.
That should actually be on the poster and on the ticket.
Hey, man! Hey, we gotta get more out here. You don't know Pookie like Elmo do.
The only there won't be. Now, we don't know if Elmo is canonically gay. Could we have a second man, or, to be possible, a second Muppet? I would consider Grover.
Grover would be interesting. It could be Grover or Abby Cadabby. We don't know which way Elmo.
Oh yeah, goes. Absolutely.
We know Elmo has a thing out against rock. Like,
rocks are getting banned.
Yeah, he's got a big issue with rocks.
It's the anti-rock agenda. Dwayne Johnson, I don't even think he's safe.
Get him out of here.
Get out of there. Number
it's
3.
for open borders.
Number 4, I want a chance at, I think this is America, Reed. We all deserve a second chance. I think this is also the tagline. Fuck it, I want Anthony Weiner.
I like
Listen.
it. That's a good
Who deserves another shot like Anthony Weiner? Sure, he was involved with endless sex scandals. So is the other person running.
Right.
He gets the pervert vote that would have gone pretty solely to Trump. We get that. He's from New Jersey, so we get the scumbag vote. I think this is a real winner. Harris Weiner 2024. Also, what else does he have to lose?
He has nothing else to lose.
It's got nothing. Yeah, I think that's almost a shoe-in. And number 5, if I could bring us home, Mike Pence.
Oh.
If you can't,
I like it.
Reed, if you can't beat him, join him. What better way to get the conservative vote than get the man who, his partner who he was with, tried to have him assassinated on January 6th?
Right.
Not only it's a redemption arc, right? People can reuse their old Trump Pence signs and just mark it off and put Harris.
Yep.
And literally anybody who is next to Mike Pence is better in comparison. So Kamala will have an even bigger glow.
And it's almost like it's like math, because he was a vice president, she is a vice president, So if you put a vice president and a vice president together, that's like a whole president. So
that's fractions.
That's fractions, man. That's Stafford County education. I'm telling you right there.
That's my list, Reed.
I like that list. That's a good ass list.
Yeah.
We need that list.
Thank you, man.
Elmo can get the scumbag vote too. Oh,
there we have it.
These are the politics that we provide here on the 323 network.
When I say I'm politically informed, this is what I'm talking about.
This is better than anything that you're gonna get from, like, I don't know who, Tucker Carlson on whatever platform he's on. What is he on? Truth Social? I don't know. Get out of here.
This is the 323 network, baby.
Aaron Rodgers wants like a turtle for president or something, so we can get this going.
We did him one better.
Right. All right, we got the top 5 music playing. So we have our movie and film expert here, Travis Byram. Let's go ahead and just dive into a top 5 that can relate to politics, but also to us. And I want to do top 5 political movies. All right, so I have my list. I'll dive through it real quick after yours. I mainly want to spotlight you, our expert here, the top 5 political movies of all time, according to Travis Byram. What do you got, buddy?
Are we bouncing back and forth, or you want me to give them all 5 to 1?
Nah, you give all 5. Starting at number 5. We go
Let's
to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and shit. I'll throw out whatever I have. I'm curious to just see what we have even connecting.
I feel like we might have some stuff in common.
Do you have any honorable mentions? OLIs?
Oh, I did not have any honorable mentions.
That's fine. That makes it quicker.
I was so committed to getting my vice president top 5. I'm sorry, Reed. I dropped the ball.
I'll deliver mine as Elmo. How about that after you?
Sounds good.
The Elmo
our future VP,
yes.
Elmo. Number 5, just because this may be recency bias, but it genuinely, I was going in with a total like, okay, this is going to be very red versus blue. This is going to be, very Hollywood liberalism, which I don't even disagree with necessarily, but Hollywood has a tendency to go that way. But I actually really loved kind of, instead of politics, kind of a more love letter to journalism in politics, Civil War.
That's a good recent one.
Yeah, man. Kirsten Dunst is fantastic. The newcomer, I'm sorry, her name is escaped my mind. She's so great. It's such an unsung field of movies that give love letters to journalism, and this just shows, I think, the backbreaking effort to keep up with an insane political race. Of course, it was a little more dystopian in the movie, but I think it's a perfect picture of how far you're willing to go for your craft. So that's my number 5, Civil War.
I think Kaylee Spaney.
Thank you. Yes, that's right. She was just Priscilla. She blew me away with this. She's definitely on the rise. Number 4, the OG. I have not seen the Denzel remake, but I'm sure it is good. But I'm talking about Frank Sinatra and Angela Lansbury, The Manchurian Candidate.
That's a good one.
Definitely a great political movie that helps validate conspiracy theorists. There are no Oliver Stone movies on my list, but I feel like Manchurian Candidate is a good precursor to his films. In this conspiracy that Frank Sinatra gets involved in, you can really see kind of the web of the strings behind the whole puppetry of modern American politics. It's very interesting. It's a great classic watch. Everyone should find their local TCM on their channel and check out The Manchurian Candidate.
Shout out to TCM.
Woo! Number 3, we have Election. One of the best Alexander Payne films in a pantheon of great films of his. This brings politics back to where most of us are familiar with. Reed and I live in the DMV. We are very used to politics in our backyard. But for a lot of people, high school elections, community elections, that's where they get their taste of politics. And this movie treats politics in a very humorous light. I think it might be my favorite Reese Witherspoon performance of all time. She was just born to play Tracy Flick. And it just shows how no matter where you are in the country, power can corrupt, and the search for that power can even touch a little high school.
Yep. That's a good one. I love Election.
So good. Number 2, we've got Steven Spielberg's Lincoln. I like this movie so much because even though it is called Lincoln, I think it maybe more appropriately could have been called 13 or the 13th Amendment, because it is all about trying to get that amendment passed, and the labor, the effort that goes into just making sure everyone has a little piece of the pie, and we think of Lincoln as this amazing political mind, which I'm sure he was, but I think his biggest legacy can be uniting people to vote for something that has been so instrumental to American society. So I just love that kind of behind the scenes look. And even though it is at times, you would think maybe it could be a stuffy, chamber piece, like some political movies can be. You're stuck indoors. It makes it so fascinating. And it really has one of the best ensembles of the 2010s. People forget how absolutely stuffed that cast is. So good. All right. And then number 1, I've got also one of my favorite movies of all time in general. We got Sidney Lumet's Network.
Hey, fanfare.
Network is, we touched on photojournalism. We touched on behind the scenes. We touched on the local stuff. We touched on conspiracy theories. And Network, to me, is a movie that just combines all of that, set at a TV station. It's not necessarily all about politics, but it's the politics that we are allowed to see that so interests me. The politics that we are fed from the media, and the strings that are pulled behind the scenes, and the movers and the shakers who basically, yes, politicians sculpt our national consciousness, but these are the people that sculpt the politicians in their image. Maybe the best screenplay of all time, and I think maybe my favorite Best Actress winner of all time in Faye Dunaway's performance. It's as close to perfect as a movie can get.
I still somehow have not seen Network.
I
need to get on this.
Happy to watch it with you anytime, man. It is fantastic.
I think that we should do a 3-2-3 watch along. That was a fantastic list. Excellent job. Surprisingly, not as much crossover as I thought, but
okay.
As promised. With my own eyes, with Elmo's own eyes, I had the Manchurian Candidate, just like Travis. And Citizen Kane! Oh, Citizen Kane! Did not quite make the cut, but number 5, Steven Spielberg's Lincoln!
Ooh.
Elmo loves getting rid of slavery.
That's the soundbite.
Number 4, a Spike Lee joint. And someone that you don't really necessarily might think as a political film, but it's very heavy in its political observations. Do the right thing!
Yes! Masterpiece.
Those that will tell. Those, oh, damn it, I fucked up the quote. You want to boycott someone? You gotta start with that goddamn barber that fucked up your head. Love that movie. Spike Lee joint. Number 3. The Post! Another Spielberg film. Elmo loves Spielberg.
Yes.
Hey, man. I gotta switch over to this one because that voice is really killing. All right,
I'm telling you, man.
I'm telling you, man. Elmo, he's a good kid. You gotta give him a chance. Or her. Could be whatever you want. Number 2, though. It's a Spielberg film. Did I already say The Post?
Yeah, well, I almost said The Post, but now Joe can say The Post.
I'm so sorry. I'm just trying. It's a skippity-doo. I'm trying to get all of the thoughts together, but you gotta hear me out.
It's okay,
Number 2,
Joe.
election. I love an election. I love it. Tracy Flick. Oh, she could be the VP. But number 1, I'll turn it over to Reed because this voice, I gotta tell you, man, it hurts too. Oh, God. Number 1 is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Oh, what
Classic.
a great movie.
My head is swirling from all of these voices in my
head. You
head.
would not believe the guests that we had on this podcast. I'll have to tell you about it later.
They didn't have the greatest guest of all time. Some people are saying, I'm not saying it, but some people have said that Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is the story of an average man. Doesn't know politics. He doesn't get into the whole thing. He has maybe the biggest hands of all time. Handsome fella, loves hookers. It's a whole thing. Nobody gets around on it. He takes over. He beats all the swamp in D.C.
Drain it.
He drained it better than other people could have ever said. I walked in the room. I said, this is a big swamp, and I'm going to drain it. But I didn't do it. Mr. Smith did it. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington's number 1. I've lost my mind.
Mr. Trump Goes to Mar-a-Lago, we'll call that. That's the 3-2-3 remake, Reed.
Those are the 3-2-3 top 5s right there. Now, folks, we transition into a fantastic interview. Alexandra Kitty is the author. You need to go check out this book that we're going to hype up for you. Again, remember, this was recorded before all of the madness of this election season really went down, but it's still a fantastic getaway from politics and kind of getting a good understanding of how politics and sports can really interact. So please enjoy. All right, our guest today is a fantastic author who has written many great works, including Murder in a Sundown Town and A Different Track, Hospital Trains of the Second World War. Now, she's here at a perfect time in American culture to promote this particular good read. The Sport of Presidents, The History of U.S. Presidents in Golf, examines the relationship between the presidency and the sport and argues through stories that the two naturally go together. The Sport of Presidents is available wherever books are sold, and its author is here today. Alexandra Kitty, thank you for joining the 323.
Thank you for having me, Reed. I'm very, very grateful.
Of course. It's fantastic to have you. And this is when I saw this pop up, like on my list of like upcoming reads, like I thought it was a really fascinating subject and a fascinating story. I mean, it's something that I've like seen all my life with the presidency, especially like I grew up on W. Bush, and W. Bush was like the first president I really followed and really grew up on. But I mean, his golf game was crazy, especially like at the worst times. And then obviously, Trump and that golfing presidency was a lot. And I've just seen the connection all my life and like wondered what exactly about the two bring each other together, I guess, wheeling and dealing. But, we're in the heat of an election year and the country's still cooling off from the first and maybe only debate between Biden and Trump this year. And it featured a memorable exchange.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie, that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing. Okay, let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
let's not act like children.
This is obviously a super timely book, so I wanted to know what exactly piqued your interest in the subjects enough in the first place for you to write this.
Well, my base and everything I do is psychology. So I'm always interested in people, what makes people the way they are. And, I'm not hardly the first person to observe that there was something very innate, ingrained in the presidential U.S. president's DNA with golf. I mean, more so than other world leaders. I mean, other world leaders play golf, but it's not done as deftly as U.S. presidents. They have totally taken this sport and not just ingrained it as part of the mythos. They have made it so essential that they extended the Oval Office to the green. So I was looking at it, I thought, so many personalities, we have so many distinctive presidents. I mean, no two are even remotely alike. And yet, what do they all have in common except for Jimmy Carter? He was the only non-golfing president in modern times, was golf. So I started to look into, okay, let's look at their personalities, let's look at their policies, their legacies, and then let's look at their golf game. Does the golf game tell us anything new about each president as individuals and as a collective? And I found, that golf game really defines the presidency in such a fascinating way that, you can never tire of golf once you kind of look at it through the eyes of the highest office in the United States. So I started to research, look into past presidents, who did, who didn't, find out during elections. Every time there was an exception for Carter, if there was a golfing candidate and a non-golfing candidate, the golfing candidate won every time except once. So I found that fascinating. I mean, we might even forget in 2016, we might think that Hillary Clinton didn't play golf. She did play golf. She was a golfer as well. But usually it's a golfer against a non-golfer, and the golfer always wins. So that got my interest and on my little escapade of understanding presidency through sport.
That's really wild, and I didn't know that about that. Especially with Carter being the non-golfer to win. But why do you think the connection is there? What is this massive connection between the presidency and golf? Does it have maybe I know about business meetings being on the golf course and all these high stress moments being on the golf course and trying to wheel and deal. Is that where this maybe originates?
It didn't actually originate from there, but it soon became obvious in two ways. The president didn't have to be stuck in a stuffy office all the time in meetings. It's much more relaxed. And every president has, gatekeepers who say to people, you can come into the Oval Office, you were pushing back. But if the person knows how to play golf, they get the president's ear somewhere away from their handlers where they can have a direct talk with the president, and it's not as formal, and they can spend longer periods of time. So one part of the golf, is that it really extends the president's world away from, let's say, the hallowed institutions to somewhere where it's much more relaxed. It's out in the open, fresh air. He's getting fit. He's active. Reporters and cameramen and photographers are going to be there taking pictures. They'll be writing about him. So it's a way to multitask without looking like you're multitasking. I mean, it's one of the most brilliant solutions to, there's only so much of you to go around. How do you expand yourself? And for U.S. presidents, it is golf.
That is a curious, that's a much better way to look at it, I guess, because I used to always, I would see people complaining. It was like, oh, this president's, off golfing. They're wasting their time. They're not doing anything. So how have you seen in any research, any massive deals struck or anything that's major that has publicly come out of a golf outing for a president?
Well, the Civil Rights Act was, crafted and actually got passed thanks to Lyndon Johnson cajoling, the enough votes with the senators and congressmen on the golf course. And he was an atrocious golf player. I mean, when he held the golf club, it looked like he was trying to kill a rabbit, a gopher on the green. It didn't look like actually he knew how to golf. He was a very lousy golfer, but very astute to getting major legislation through on the golf course. And he was not the only one. Barack Obama took this to a completely different level, where if there was there was a partisan impasse, he would invite, the key players to the golf course. Sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. But at least, let's talk. Let's talk on the green. And that's, it's always been, even Bill Clinton, he would make alliances with foreign leaders out on the golf course. I'm from Canada. He has an enduring friendship with our former Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, and that was cultivated on the golf course. So a lot of things, international affairs, you can think presidents golfing and inviting world leaders, inviting key people, and just, going on and say, let's do business here. But, not to seem so formal. It's a way to disarm people. And a way to make them relax and say, okay, what is it that we need to do? And this is what I need you to do. So it's an utterly unique and brilliant way of doing this without scaring people. When you think of a lot of these deals, people might be afraid. If it's in the office, these tense meetings, you're out on the golf course, you're passing, very important and significant legislation, but people feel at ease.
That's fantastic.
When you're doing it.
Absolutely fascinating. Have you had like a personal major interest in golf or in politics or both before this?
Well, I've always had interest in politics, but I used to box. So to me, I wasn't the golfer. But boxing's all about strategy. So it was nice being able to have that scaffolding. Going, okay, is golf about a strategy? Well, yes, it's absolutely, but in a different sort of way. It's not as confrontational. It's not as antagonistic. Chess, art of war, boxing kind of go hand in hand. But golf is much more of a refined, quiet, understated way of doing the same thing.
Very well. We need to get you with our boxing contributor, Jerome, on this too. But so do you think... Have you seen other presidents? Like golf is obviously like the major one. That's the one that we really look at with presidencies. But are there other sports that have like really captured? I know with former President Obama, basketball was a big one. But I can see where golf is, really controlled and safe, and like you're not going to get hurt doing it. Basketball, there was a little bit of fear. It could tear something. Who knows what could happen during that. Is there anything that's close to golf with the presidents, or is like golf like that key subject?
It's that key, but there have been presidents who've also played tennis and those who prefer horseback riding. So it's not like, the presidents do one sport, but golf tends to easiest to transform into a political sphere because you can talk while you're golfing. With tennis, you're sort of kind of hitting back and forth. Maybe horseback riding also, but then, you have mostly golf. It has, over the years, kind of gone down to golf where I would say by 1910, journalists were saying, well, of course, as we know, golf is, the pastime of presidents. So by 1910, it was already established that way, but it just got deeper and deeper as it became a world of its own.
The sport of presidents is available anywhere that you get books right now. You need to go get it. I want to ask you obviously this is a major question I feel like you get all the time of like, and we'll dive into it. I know I gave you the requirements earlier for the top golfing presidents, but you brought up a terrible golfing president earlier. Are there any like very funny stories, fascinating stories that you've seen of like terrible golfing presidents and them still being able to work their way around it?
Well, Richard Nixon was not a good golfer. He only did it as vice president in the beginning because of Eisenhower being the golfing president. So he sort of did it begrudgingly. I didn't really want to do it. He did it. He was a terrible golfer. And then when he left office, he needed therapy, sort of a sports therapy, and then he turned to golf. So here's somebody who during the office went kicking and screaming. One early non-golfer was Calvin Coolidge. He really didn't like golf. He made it, but he bought golf clubs. But when he left the presidency, he left his golf clubs in the White House. So there's been presidents who don't like it, and they make their feelings known, but that's rare. Gerald Ford, when he golfed, sometimes he would hit somebody on the head with a, wayward golf ball and make international headlines. But he truly loved the sport, but it didn't help his image of being somewhat klutzy with his wayward golf ball. But it's not bad golfer. Very good golfer was Woodrow Wilson. He was so dedicated to it. He would play golf in the snow and use red golf balls so he could see the ball in the snow as he was playing. So he was very devoted. So there has been so many presidents who've been totally devoted. They might not be great players, but they are good sports about it, which is really nice to see. Well, I don't really like golf, but I'll give it a try. And they get better, and it stays with them even after the presidency. So it's not just, they might have started doing it, well, because this is convenient to conducting business. Once they leave office, they still go golfing.
So let's go into the current field here, right? President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, they had a very tense exchange about their golf games during their debate. Between the two, do you think I have not thought of Biden too much as a golfer. Trump, I kind of related almost directly. If we had this argument on the show, that why not just do that for the presidency at this point? Just have a golf game for the presidency, or do like a Olympic style event. They can each choose a sport. So if they were to do golf, who wins this matchup in your opinion?
Well, this is actually Biden is a much better golfer than most people realize. Really? He underplayed it because he wanted to differentiate himself from Trump, the same way that John F. Kennedy did when he was campaigning against Eisenhower. So there's a lot of times presidents will say, well, I don't golf, and they're extremely good golfers. Trump kind of went turbo by owning all these golf courses around. He does everything so big. So, and then you have Biden, who was underplaying it, and Trump, who's really overplaying it. Trump is an extremely good golfer, but considering how much he can practice, and he has his own golf courses. But Trump would tell you he would win. I think it's a lot more closer than most people realize. Biden just kind of recently said, I'm retiring from golfing. But in his heyday, he was, I would say, not quite on par, but almost on par. He would give Trump a run for his money in that department. So it's anybody's guess, but Trump would tell you he would win hands down, and that's that. He's very territorial and very protective of that territory of golf because he defines himself. That's his brand, is golf.
I want to, before we get you out of here, I want to dive into something that is a big handle on our show, which are top 5 lists. And I think you are the perfect person to handle a top 5 list that we've actually wondered about and debated on the show. So it's great to have you as an expert on this field. We want to dive into the top 5 golfing presidents of all time. We're going to play our very dramatic intro music for that, and we will dive in.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the 323's Top 5.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Not dramatic at all. Perfectly reasonable. Alexandra Kitty joins us right now. We have her top 5 golfing presidents of all time. Now, this isn't like a top 5 just to, clear it with any of the commenting people. This isn't like, the list of like who she believes the top 5 best presidents are of all time or anything. This is purely on the golf. This is on the golf course. So let's dive into this. If you have that list ready, we'll start you at number 5. Who are the best golfing presidents of all time?
I would say at number 5, it's Barack Obama. He was the first left-handed golf player.
First left-handed golf player. Wow.
Yes.
I always forget. Wait, so is he left hand? That's a call for another day. I've never. That's funny. I just didn't really think Obama with golf, but maybe I don't know. I guess I just related it to all the other. There's a lot going on during that presidency that golf wouldn't come up. Number 4
would be Dwight D. Eisenhower, since he was the golf president.
Of all these presidents, how do you think? Like, and I guess we'll get closer to number 1. Who could any actually like last with like some pro golfers, do you think? Or was their game just like, kind of like retired on the side of business good?
Oh no, Harding could go with the best of them. Also, the Franklin Roosevelt during his youth, John Kennedy could go. There were quite a few presidents that were actually good enough that they would be on par with a professional golfer. Both Bushes too. Bush 41 and Bush 43. The Walker Cup in golf, that's based on their own family line. So they would be definitely part and parcel of being on par with the professional golfers.
On par. I see what you did there. I like it. Good job. I like that. Number 3 on the list.
It would be Donald Trump, since he is also an exceptional golfer, but he totally went turbocharged on the mythos of presidents in golf by owning a slew of his own golf courses around the world. He's made that brand something completely unexpected in the presidency.
Number 2 on the list
would be Franklin D. Roosevelt. He couldn't play golf while he was president, but he did help start 300 public golf courses around America. So he actually connected the middle class with the presidency, and that was something very, very generous of him to do.
That's fantastic. I never knew that. So good for him. The number 1 golfing president of all time, according to Alexandra Kitty, is
George Herbert Walker Bush. He was an excellent golfer. It's in his DNA. The Walker Cup is part of his legacy, and he was known as a speed golfer. So he might not have been having the best handicap, but everything else about him just, screamed golf.
That's wild. That's very good. Okay, those are the top 5 golfing presidents of all time. So if HW is at number 1, where does his son? Where does W land?
Probably 7 or 8. Very good, but his father was just, nobody could keep up with him, how fast he was at golf.
All right. I mean, it with W in golf, it just like, for some reason with W, I relate it to him more than anybody. Or I guess, well, Trump number 1 on relatability, W number 2, but W especially because of one of my favorite clips that we've never got to present on this show, but we have this opportunity right now.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
He smashed that thing. Smashing in the face of terror. Alexandra Kitty is the author of The Sport of Presidents. You can find this book wherever books are sold. It's a fantastic read. You need to go ahead and get it. Before I get you out of here, is there any other stories, anything that you learned through all the research here that you found like especially fascinating and that you really want readers to take away when reading this book?
Well, the presidents have taken it so seriously that you've had golf trainers like Max Albin teach multiple presidents through the years. So this is something that presidents don't just do for strategy. They want to get better. They get proper training. They make sure that they get better as they go along. And it's something that, a lot of times after post-presidency, former presidents will golf together. They'll golf with former world leaders. And that it's just something that once, they get bitten by that bug, it's a lifelong passion for them.
That's fantastic. And you know what? It kind of inspires, anytime with these golf things, it inspires me to want to try out golf. So, maybe if I get into it, it's not too late. I might have a future in this whole presidency thing. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Alexandra Kitty is the author. The book is The Sport of Presidents, The History of U.S. Golf and the Presidency. You need to go get this book. Alexandra Kitty, thank you so much for being here on the show with us. It was fantastic to talk to you, and this is incredible insight, and I can't wait for people to read this and really dive into this, especially in this season.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Of course. Thank you. Folks, that was the show. Every time I yell into this mic, it seems to scare everybody. But it's okay. It didn't scare Travis. Travis is fearless.
Listen, man, it was star-studded this
was a big episode.
Shoot.
It was a big one. Hey, I want to thank all the guests of this show. Travis, Byram, of course, he's here with me. Thank you, as always, for being here, my friend.
Absolutely.
And of course, Alexandra Kitty, go get her book, The Sport of Presidents. It is a fantastic read. It's a fantastic insight into the history of golf and the presidential office. Check that out. And of course, subscribe to the 323 Network on YouTube. Elmo loves it.
Where can I? How do I follow? How do I follow? What do I need my running pants on?
You should get your running pants on to go follow. Go follow, Mr. President.
Jill, I'm coming. Jill.
Don't come too hard, Mr. President. It could end you. Got to be careful. Oh, folks, thank you for listening. Go subscribe. Go follow on all the social media platforms for the 323. I am your host, Reed Murphy. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
Number
All
3.
is for open borders.